You're inside the press box. Christian FM Sports presents Inside the Press Box, where we discuss all sports from our favorite high school team to college and pro. Here's your hosts, Paul Tipton and Gary Paris.
Well, hey there, Vero Nation. Where you been? Oh, that's right. We had some time off thanks to bye week and Milton and all these other things that life seems to take precedent over. And but now we get the chance to get back to what we love and enjoy, and that's talking about Vero football. Gary Paris, along with Paul Tipton, thanks for joining us inside the press box. And GP, you know, you got all this time off. Now, it wasn't on the schedule to be off this long. Obviously, we're supposed to play a game against Rockledge. That got canceled because of Milton. And then now you've got a bye week in there. So by the time we actually get on the field to take on our big district rival, Treasure Coast, it's been 3 weeks.
It is. And I tell you what, losing the Rockledge game was one of those tune-up games you'd like to have before you play Treasure Coast. And it was another one you want to get on that streak. You're on a hot streak. You won 4 games.
Yeah.
And Rockledge is a good team, and I would have liked to have played them because it gives us another chance against a competitive team and to get yourself 5 straight wins. But it didn't happen. Mother Nature took over. And being out 2 weeks, Paul, 2 games, almost 3 weeks, is you're saying, well, is there a little rust on you or something? I think it was one of those things that was really needed. I think that we had some banged up players.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a young quarterback that got, we were had to take him out of a game at the end because we didn't want him to get hurt any worse. His shoulder, non-throwing shoulder, turns out he's okay. You talked to him last week. He said he could have played against Rockledge if we would have, but I'm glad. I think that extra week helps him, and I think he's he looked good. He looked good in practice. Let's put it this way: he looked good.
Yeah.
He was throwing the ball, and and there's other guys on that team that are banged up, so you got to heal some injuries. So I think it was in a way, it allows you to spend a lot of time getting ready for Treasure Coast.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's always like 2 ways you can always look at these types of situations. You can go, well, man, be great to get back out on the field and ride the momentum you had, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you could have had an emotional hangover and you don't play like you're supposed to play. Who knows what would have happened against Rockledge? I mean, you can assume based off of records and those kind of things that, yeah, we were favored to win that game. Maybe we win that game. Maybe we don't. Who knows? But then, like you said, when you talk about the overall health of the team this late into the season, you know what? Having a little bit of time like this, probably one of the better things that could have happened to the team. Not that you necessarily want it to happen the way that it did with a storm and everything, but the blessing in disguise is we get healthier going into probably, well, no, not probably. It is our biggest game of the year.
It is for us because the winner takes all. It's the winner takes the district, and even though Treasure Coast is 2 wins and 6 losses, this is their season right here, and we know what they can do. We've seen them for years. This is a great rivalry. It really comes down to this game like it has for the last few years. The winner takes all, and they're I think they're really gotten themselves pretty good situation here. They beat Centennial. They beat Central, which they had to do. They beat Centennial 36-14, Paul, and they beat Central 36-0.
They hadn't put up 36 points all season. The best they had done is 10 going into the Fort Pierce Central game, and then they've gone back-to-back weeks with putting up 36 points.
That's that offense they run. I mean, the other teams they played good teams. They played an Osceola team, which is one of your top-ranked teams in the state. We've played them back and forth. They have that First Academy up in Orlando, which is a school that's kind of like an IMG-type school program. They lost to them 42-7, but the big loss to them this year was 48-0 to West Boca. And that was different for me. And then they lost to Atlantic 47-9 before they got back to playing playing Central and Centennial. So they've won 2 games. How good are they? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know because you know, I know coaches. You know, you go watch a game and you watch them play. Excuse me, but they are a team that they do the same things over and over and over and over to try to perfect them in that offense. It's not a hard offense. It's an offense that repetition and precise is what counts on that.
Absolutely does, you know, and here we go again. It's same story, different season, and then it comes down to us and Treasure Coast, which we kind of thought would be the scenario. You know, look, let's go back to the beginning of Vero's season here when we start 0-3. We're like, all right, guys, I know this isn't what we're hoping for, and this isn't typical Vero, but look, the most important games on our schedule are those 3 district games, and if we can go 3-0 in that, then we're in the playoffs. Well, guess what? Treasure Coast fans are saying the exact same thing. They hadn't won a single game. They were 0-6, and they go, you know what? We got 3 games ahead of us. If we go 3-0, we're in the playoffs.
It's really ironic. You're right. And here we are again down to it. And not only are you battling for your district championship, but you get a home game. The district champion gets a home game. Mm-hmm. And both teams are starving to have that home game at their field to play an open round of the playoffs.
Who wouldn't?
Exactly right. So that it's a double importance. I think Vero's in the playoff if they lose. I think Treasure Coast would be in the playoffs even with their loss because they played such a tough schedule and they played teams that are ahead of them. They were that one time they were like 8th and then 7th or whatever in the in the polls. Or in the when they bracket them, and so there's a good chance that they still might be in it, and so it's a big game. Let's come right down to it.
Yeah,
it's at Vero Beach. It's good to have a game. You know, we were back at home. It's good to have a game since we haven't played in the last 3 weeks or so. It seems like. Mm-hmm. And are we healthy? Well, yeah, I think we're healthy.
Should be,
and I think we should be. Yeah, and I think we've worked hard during the week. I think that Coach Jay has had his kids out there. There's, you don't overrun them. What you do is you try to keep them in conditioning, some shape, and
because not playing 2 games or for 2 weeks basically, that's probably the hardest thing, Gary, as you know, as a former player and as a coach. Is like, how do you keep your guys in game shape? And that's the hardest thing. Nothing ultimately simulates a game.
No, you're 100% right. And again, I unfortunately, when I say this, when I played in high school, they didn't have that open date.
Right.
You played 10 straight weeks in a row, and then they had one makeup week in case you lost the storms. And then they had in college, we didn't have the open dates like they do today. In college, you played your 11 straight weeks, and then you got that, you go to a bowl game if you're fortunate enough to do that. And in the pros, when I played up until we didn't have an open date. We had 14, then we went to 16 weeks in a row. And today in the pros, they have an open date.
Yeah.
And in the college, they have 2.
I know, it's incredible.
They have 2 open dates now. In high school, everybody has an open date, and they use it for a makeup game if they can, if they need to, whatever. So I know that people said, why didn't you all have asked me, why didn't you make up your open date a game? And the problem is that everybody at that period is playing district games. See, you have to get your districts in by this week.
True.
That this is and so everybody was playing district games, and you can't. It's hard to find a team to come in and want to play. It really is tough unless you find an independent or whatever. And that wasn't the case. I think that nobody wanted to play.
Yeah, and there's a lot of schools, by the way, and you may not know this, that only play 9 games in a season. They don't play 10 games.
That goes back to the COVID.
Right.
When the COVID era was, I remember at one time that they only allowed you to play no more than 9 games.
Right. So that allows for, for teams that if they only have 9 games on the schedule, they still got a week before the playoffs start. So like if they need to get some type of makeup game in, if there's a district contest, or in some cases there may be some tiebreakers that they've got to go in and figure out how to figure out the tiebreaker.
You're talking about this now. This is the thing that's happening around the state of Florida right now. Teams are playing on a Friday, Tuesday, or Monday.
Yeah,
Friday.
Yeah.
To get district and get games made up.
We've been down that road before.
Yes, we have. I mean, that's tough to have a 3-game period, 3 games in that period of time.
3 games in 8 days that's asking a lot. Even if I guess even if they were playing on a Monday, I guess with the tiebreakers, Gary, they don't do it like the old days anymore. I think they use more of just head-to-head information and those kind of things. I'm pretty sure. I'm not fully sure how they're working out district tiebreakers or anything like that, but obviously in the old days you'd go play a half or something like that and figure out who won from there. But,
well, then they had the old Kansas tiebreaker,
right?
Where you line up on the 25 and at a regular game, so that's during a game,
right?
But afterwards it was. They would literally get to where you played a full game. I mean, now, that's why up in Orlando area, Frank Lover, Frank, his son plays at Winter Park. Frank's our engineer for UCF. They're playing a game. They played Friday night. They're playing Tuesday, and they're playing again Friday.
Wow.
And that's tough. That's tough. And I told him Vero's been that way too. We've had a couple seasons where we had to play those 3 games in that period of time. Yeah. And
that's a rough deal. I mean, I honestly I've never understood that because you don't see that ever in the pros. You don't ever see that. I mean, like obviously in the pros you have like maybe a short week.
Yeah, you may have a game on Thursday, but then you don't play again till the following Sunday.
Right. And then in college, they never do anything like that.
No, usually you have an open date if you have a
game. And what boggles my mind with that, Gary, is like when we always talk about safety and all these safety protocols and whatnot, it's like it doesn't seem like anybody ever questions like, okay, we're going to play 3 games in 8 days. How's that safe?
It's hard on a. It's hard on the player.
Yeah, I don't care what age you are.
But they're resilient. But still, at the end of the year, you're banged up. I don't care,
of course,
if you're 14, 15, 16, or you're 28 or 29 playing the game. You're going to get to a point where your muscles are sore, your muscles are tired, you're bruised, you got aches and pains. You play through them. Then you go in and get treatment and it's just so funny. It's like in the beginning of the season, you won't see hardly anybody in the training room. By the mid-season, you start seeing a few people trickling in there. They come in a little bit more. By that 3/4 of the season, that room's full.
So what are you saying, that AJ has it pretty easy at the beginning of the season, and now he's working his tail off?
I'm saying is that it doesn't matter whether you're at high school, college, or pros. Yeah. When you get past that middle of the season, everybody has a banged up, has a bruise, and has a if you're a starter or you play a lot of plays. So it's that time of the year for it.
You imagine just think about it, Gary, some of these teams like your Apopka or Treasure Coast, they rely a lot on this ground game. I mean, if you had to play 3 games in 8 days running offenses like that,
that's hard. And that may be one of the reasons why Irvin Jones only plays 9 games a year.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. But yeah.
And again, he's the head coach of Treasure Coast. And he changed their philosophy when he came in. I mean, he's been there, 9-10 years maybe, or a little bit more?
Longer than that. Okay. I mean, Lenny's been here, 13 seasons now, 14 seasons, and he was here before that. Okay. Yeah.
So he's been there a long time.
He's the longest, I think in this area, he's the longest tenured coach.
He changed the attitude. He was there for I think a year or two, then all of a sudden he says, bam, we're going to change this.
Yeah.
And when they did, they were one of the few teams that did it. Them and a Popka, or them and some.
Yeah, when you had a situation where the hot offense was, everybody was moving to some form of spread,
right,
and he was going the opposite direction, and it was just like, okay, what does he know that everybody else doesn't know? And it's just, a credit to him. He just figured something that works for him, and he started getting. I've always credited him with like having the best selling job ever, because to be able to sell kids on this type of offense when you're watching all these other schools with this, high scoring, fast paced moving offense that looks fun, it's entertaining to watch. There's nothing flashy about the single wing or the wing T offense. It's just not.
It's probably one of the hardest, if you don't see it, one of the hardest offenses to prep yourself for. Because when you're like Vero Beach, you only see it 1 week. Mm-hmm. All right, you only have Saturday after your game. Mm-hmm. You do all your quick evaluations, and you fix the things you think you did wrong and talked about them, because usually you do that on a Monday. Well, you're started already on Saturday, starting to coach against that wing T. Mm-hmm. And then on Sunday, when the coaches come in after Sunday afternoon and they start analyzing it, they break it down, they study the film as a group, the things they do, what they do best, and how they do it. It's kind of like, what I'm going to run. I haven't changed it in a decade. I'm going to run these same plays that I haven't changed. Mm-hmm. Now stop me.
Right.
You've got to figure out how to stop me.
That sounds so familiar. I'm trying to think. Where have I seen or heard that before? Was that?
It was a guy named Billy Livings.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah.
He ran that. He didn't run a wing T, but he ran something similar to it.
We did run the. We did. Yeah. We did run the wing, but
yeah,
we just didn't do the single.
No, we didn't. Do the, yeah. And he would say, "Stop me."
Here's an interesting thought. Okay, imagine if Coach Livings was let's just say around 30 years old right now, getting a coaching job. You think he'd be still running that? Would he be looking at running the single wing, or do you think he'd go spread?
I think he evaluates his athletes and looks and sees what is best and easiest for him and his staff to coach, to prepare. You have to be able to look at your athletes and say, okay, Treasure Coast, when they switched over to it, they were coming out of they weren't as good a team as they've been in the last decade. And he found, Irving Jones found something that worked for him. Billy Livings had an offense that worked for him.
Yeah, sure did.
And let me tell you something. He would give his defense, with that offense, he knew that they weren't going to score a lot of points. Mm-hmm. So all he figured, if I can score 2 touchdowns or 10 points, then our defense could win the game for us. That was his mentality. So sometimes the best athletes were over on defense.
Yeah.
And I think Irving Jones has said, all right, everybody else around here is running a spread offense. I'm going to do what I think my kids can do. Mm-hmm. So what I do with it, instead of going out and having wide receivers, that you talk about, quarterbacks and wide receivers don't jump to Treasure Coast.
No. It's not one of those that and of course, again, Coach Livings was in an era where you didn't have open enrollment and those kind of things, So it makes it interesting, because I think we're seeing it right now with Coach Jones. I've seen now a couple articles where he's talked about he had to replace 11 starters on offense this year.
Yes.
And so it's taken them a little while to kind of get the feel and get the groove. They feel like they're finding their groove now. But, it does, as to your point, it's not an offense that, certain skill position guys are going to go, yeah, that's where I want to be.
Oh, I'm a quarterback. I want to throw I want to throw for 3,000 yards.
Right.
I may 3,000 yards my whole lifetime.
Yeah, right. yeah. Right.
So you go, nope, I'm not going to that school.
Right.
Oh, I think I love Vero Beach. Vero Beach has that spread offense. I like it. No, and it attracts people. It attracts your skill people.
Sure.
The best thing, what he's done at Treasure Coast is he's developed his offensive line. So the mentality of the offensive line, he's out there in the elementary schools and telling these kids, hey, you're going to play football, the travel ball. He looks for offensive linemen. He gets them in his there. And if you're an offensive lineman, you want to play. You can play most anywhere you want to if you're good. But you're going to get a lot of recognition at Treasure Coast because that's what they do best. Is their offensive line and running backs. Their running backs are usually are pretty good running backs, are strong and everything. If you want to be a running back and get recognition and try to get to college, Treasure Coast is a good place to go because it's even though I like the you're going to get more totes. Yeah, it seems like at a run there, but in Vero Beach's spread offense, our running back is one of our leading receivers.
Totally,
our running back is a key position. Yeah. And that's why we develop good running backs because he can catch. They got to catch the ball and they can run the ball. I mean, it's not unusual for a leading receiver to be a running back. Yeah,
and they got to block too, by the way.
And they got to block, pick up the blitz, and everything. So, I think that the hardest disadvantage that Vero has is that we're in an area where it's hard to pick up good. It's hard to get linemen. We're not in a.
I think overall, I think that's becoming the challenge just because of the way that the lower, your Pop Warner football and all those lower tier leagues or however you want to say it, the Mighty Mites, if you will. What would have been your feeder programs for ultimately high school. They have different rules and stipulations about kids,
different
with sizes and these different things, and so it becomes a little more challenging at the high school level to develop kids that are ready to play now.
Paul, as the JV coach and as we do freshmen and 10th graders, and we have freshman linemen come in that have never played football. Yeah. That have never, because they were too big to play. They couldn't go out and play flag football. Right. I mean, and they just didn't have those leagues. You had to have had played travel ball to do it, and a lot of parents can't always afford travel ball. Sure. Yeah. And the other thing is trying to get those kids, and it takes us. We have to literally break them down, get them to learn how to play. They got to lift weights all summer. They lift weights to try to get them stronger for the fall, for their challenge in the fall. Yeah. And if that's one of the hardest things is a ninth grader a coach or a 10th grade coach is to find your offensive lineman. You'll find kids that are athletic that can play wide receiver or quarterback or running back, whatever. And they're a lot easier to develop than a lineman because those kids played a lot of skill sports, play basketball or they run track or whatever. So I think the hardest challenge, in my opinion, is having offensive linemen. And with open enrollment, we've gotten some really good kids.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it has become quite an interesting challenge for high school coaches to develop those players because, again, I think the misconception is there's a big kid, he can play offensive line. Well, if he's never played the game before, you can't just put him in. I mean, you can, but he's probably going to make a lot of mistakes because he doesn't know what he's doing.
It's the mentality of the game. Now, I'm not going to speak for Lenny because I don't know what Lenny's. He's such a fantastic high school coach. He's one of the sharpest and brightest young coaches I've seen in the game in a long, long time. And it's amazing how he comes up with these plays and he studies the game. He's a student of the game. Lenny's very, very intelligent, very smooth about it, and he knows, he sees a quarterback, he sees his mechanics, he recognizes it and tries to help that quarterback out. You're always, he's going to have kids, the parents are going to call him and say, hey, look, my so-and-so son is a wide receiver. He'd like to play for Vero Beach. Well, we can't, Lenny says, well, you have to sign him up because he can't recruit. No, he can't recruit. And he says, Well, they'll say, well, can my son start for you? I don't even know your son. I've never seen your son. And we don't do tryouts. I don't think but he can come to Vero Beach and enroll in the summer and work with us in the summer. And if you don't like it, then you can take him out.
Yeah. But
he has to register to be in school. I mean, that's the way I think Lenny does it. He does. And he'll never promise a kid a starting job. And
I don't know how you can. I mean, obviously you can, but I mean, if you want to be honest with people, and I believe, I think most coaches want to do that.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't think there's a lot of, well, I'll just leave it at that. But I do think in the coach that I know that he's going to be honest about things, and he's, no, I can't promise you that. Why would I?
Yeah, why would I?
I mean, who knows what's going to happen,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, it's getting back, and why does that take us all the way back? What we've been doing is how these coaches build their programs. Yeah. And Irving Jones has decided to build his on the wing tee.
Yeah.
And he's had success at that. He has.
And here again, this is one of those games where you just kind of everything comes down to this game. And, it's not a make or break for your season. It's more or less, I mean, can you position yourself right in the playoffs? Vero's done what they've needed to do so far in this season to place themselves in the right place for playoffs. Okay. Now, one last check on that, or one last item on the list is getting a district championship. And in order to do that, you got to beat Treasure Coast. Now, for the last, I think 5 times that we've met them, it's been Treasure Coast. 4 out of the last 5 times, Treasure Coast has won the ball game. Last year, they won. We met them in the regular season. They won 22-10. Then we met them like 3 weeks later in the playoffs. They won 21-12. Okay, so there's you want to, however you want to call it. Is this revenge? Is this payback? Whatever it is, the bottom line is this: district title's on the line. You want that district title because if you win a district championship, you got at least a home game in the first round of the playoffs, and that's important.
It sure is, because you get that, you got it at home, you got your home crowd, and this year Vero has had 4 road games, and we still got 1 to go with Palm Bay at the end of the last game of the season, and so having 5 home games has been. People go, whoa, you only got 5 home games? I'm used to having Vero having 8 games. There's,
right.
Well, we would love to, but to get teams to play us, we got to do a home and away.
Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's going to be a great game. It'll be a great challenge. I think Vero Beach is going to be healthier and I think that
they should be.
And I think that when you have 2 weeks to prepare for a team, you do it in stages. Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting. I know when you and Matt talked to Lenny on this week.
Well, it'll be interesting because as you talked about with 2 weeks. I mean, look, school's been out, so when schools are out, you're not you're not allowed to have any extracurricular activities going on.
Did I hear that word? Supposed to?
Supposed to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I'm just saying. That is what the understanding is, that whenever school is out. Now, activities. I don't have kids in school anymore, so it's like I don't know when school was in and when it was out. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But I'm just saying that while you would like to have that full 2 weeks, they didn't really get the full 2 weeks because they had school was out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll see, Gary. I mean, look, again, it's going to be Friday night at the Citrus Bowl. Treasure Coast versus Vero Beach for the District 11 championship.
Amen. It's going to be a great game, folks. It's at home. It's your last opportunity this season to see your home team. So get out there and support them. They're going to need your support. Talk to your friends. There are tickets available, and you can get them at the gate now.
Yeah.
You can get them at the gate. You don't have to go online if you don't want to, but you can get them at the gate, and it's going to be a showdown, and it's going to be that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And our kids need your support.
Absolutely.
And it's so neat when they look over there and they see thousands of people in the stands and on both sides. And so get out and support. Get out and find out who's going to be your district champ this Friday night.
Game time, 7 o'clock. Our coverage begins at 6 p.m. with our pregame show. Look forward to having you be a part of all the fun there at the Citrus Bowl. Of course, if you can't make it to the Citrus Bowl, you can listen on the radio, watch us on YouTube at Vero Nation Network, and I always appreciate your support as well. Gary Parrish, Paul Tipton, thanks for joining us inside the press box. As always, go Indians.
Thanks for joining us inside the press box. For more, go to ChristianFM.com.